Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. My pleasure on two fronts. As first of all, as President of Tattersalls Club, to welcome all of the members of the Queensland Racehorse Owners Association to our club. And in just a few moments, we're going to introduce to you Murray Watt, who is representing the Honourable Tim Mulheron, Minister for Racing, and Mr Tim Nichols, who is the Shadow Treasurer and has also, from the LNP's point of view, as administers the Shadow Ministry of Racing. Welcome to this forum. Would you please make welcome the member for Everton, Mr Murray Watt, who is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Treasurer and Minister for State Development. He's attending on behalf of the Honourable Tim Mulheron, who is the Minister for Agriculture, Food and Regional Economics. And would you welcome also Mr Tim Nichols, who is the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, the Shadow Treasurer, Shadow Minister for Finance, Shadow Minister for Trade and Shadow Minister for Racing, accompanied as well by Ray Stevens, who is the Parliamentary Secretary for Racing. Would you please make welcome our guests? Ladies and gentlemen, you will have seen there are a number of questions which we are going to pose to both gentlemen. Could I, first of all, Murray, start with you, and then I'll put the same question to Tim. Just before we actually go to the set questions, just a couple of questions that I myself would like answered. One is, the racing industry is such a vital industry. In fact, it's always said that it's in probably the top 4 industries in this country. I heard an interview with Harold Mitchell, who was the chairman of TVN on Tuesday night, and he's one of Australia's top media buyer, and would be well versed in such statistics that racing nationally is the 3rd biggest industry in this country. When you take employment, the number of people who earn their living either full-time or part-time, the revenue that the industry generates, and then of course the industries that get their return or spin-off because of the racing industry. Murray, one of the things that always worries me, and I think probably worries most people here, is that it always seems that the Minister for Racing or the racing portfolio is just tagged on to somewhere else. And in fact, if we look at Mr Tim Mulheron, who is the Minister for Racing, he's actually the Minister for Agriculture, Food and Regional Economics, but included in that as well, he has the responsibility for, and I'll list them in order, and this comes off the government's official website, animal welfare, agricultural chemicals, biosecurity, food and fibre production, plant and animal diseases, forestry, racing, rural coordinator, and also regional economics. With such a big industry, why doesn't the government have a specific minister for racing?
Thanks, John, and thanks very much for the invitation to be able to join you tonight. I should say at the outset, unfortunately, Tim Mulheron was unable to be here tonight. He had another commitment in Mackay in one of his agriculture roles, launching a new sugar industry training centre in Mackay. In terms of your question, the people here would be familiar that at different times, while the Beattie government has been in power, the Bligh government has been in power, at different times there has been someone who has had the word racing within their portfolio title. I acknowledge I don't think that there's ever been someone who's been a dedicated only the Minister for Racing. And I have to say I'm not sure of too many examples where that's happened in other states as well. Again, I think there's been times when there's been someone with that in their portfolio. I think that I was going to make a comment about Tim being, someone with a lot of capacity and a lot of ability to take on a wide range of areas, so I don't feel for a moment that he is underrepresenting the interests of the racing industry around the cabinet table, despite not having that necessarily within his title or despite having other aspects to his portfolio. I mean, when I think back about where the racing portfolio has sat within different ministers' portfolios overall within the life of this government, very often it's been combined with an economic development portfolio of some sort. I think Peter Lawler, the previous minister, also had issues to do with tourism, fair trading, other economic portfolios. And I suppose, generally speaking, we've tried to group racing with someone who has had an economic portfolio as part of their, across their general portfolio, and that's obviously the approach that's been taken by the opposition as well, with Tim having that as part of a broader portfolio within Treasury. So I think, I suppose it comes down to whether people feel that by not having a dedicated minister whose only job that is, disadvantages the industry. I would argue that the smaller someone's portfolio is, the fewer number of interests that it covers, in some ways that can actually reduce the weight that that person brings to the cabinet table. If you're able to bring a broader range of interests as well as racing and say that it is a key economic portfolio, then I actually think that can benefit the industry.
All right, one other question I'd like to put to you. We look at some of the wonderful facilities in this city, some of the beautiful stadiums that we have. We have Suncorp Stadium, we have the Gabba, we have other beautiful stadiums as well around the state. Yet the industry that has generated so much of the revenue over so many decades, millions and millions and millions of dollars to consolidated revenue for all sorts of causes and helping to build those stadiums. Yet the facilities that we have on our main race course at Eagle Farm are antiquated. I remember 2 years ago, Craig Young, one of the racing journalists for the Sydney Morning Herald, he wrote, and we laughed, but we would probably laugh more if it wasn't so serious. He said, if Captain Cook sailed up the East Coast today, the only thing he'd recognise is Eagle Farm Racecourse. Why, from the industry that generates the money, can't the governments of any persuasion put money into building facilities such as the southern states have?
Fair question, and I do recognise absolutely that Eagle Farm is a complete institution within our city and within our state. People in this room would no doubt be aware of the fairly recent commitment from the government to invest about $110 million in revitalising facilities right around the state across a number of different tracks. Depending what happens with Albion Park, there may be actually more money on the table to do more of that kind of revitalisation work there as well. I think one of the challenges that you've always got in a state like Queensland is that it's not like Victoria. Not everyone lives in Melbourne. It is a very decentralised state, a very regionalised state. I'm not sure how many people within the audience tonight are from different regions of Queensland aside from Brisbane. So we always feel that it's important to make sure that whether we're talking about football or whether we're talking about racing, to make sure that the regions get a slice of the action as well. So I haven't got any specific announcements to make tonight about money that we're going to be putting into Eagle Farm Racecourse. But we do think that it is important to improve the facilities, and that's exactly why we've invested that $110 million.
All right, thank you, Murray. I'll ask Tim Nichols if he would come forward, and I'll just pose both of those questions to Tim before we move to the set agenda. Tim, first of all, from the LNP's point of view, has there ever been consideration given the importance of the racing industry, that there be a specific minister for racing?
Sure. Well, I am that specific minister for racing, and I think I'm the Deputy Leader of the Opposition and I'm the Shadow Treasurer, and in a change of government, if we are fortunate at the next election to do that, I think that will be a pretty powerful voice around the Cabinet table, and it's a powerful voice around the Shadow Cabinet table as well. I do want to emphasise that in terms of, from our perspective, we've also got a Parliamentary Secretary dedicated to racing, Ray Stevens, who's here with me tonight. Many people will know Ray, know his involvement in the racing industry and his understanding for the racing industry. Ray and I are in constant communication about the matters that matter to the racing industry, an industry that employs 30,000 people in Queensland. It's worth about $1.4 billion, 134 clubs and venues across the state. It's got an enormous number, I think 45,000 nearly horses racing for $75 million worth of prize money. So we regard it as an important industry. That's why I've got that portfolio, and that's why we have a Parliamentary Secretary to be a champion for the industry. We also understand, John, that it's not just the money and it's not just the business, it's also the social network that racing engenders, particularly in rural and regional Queensland, and that is the coming together of people to enjoy those race days that are held out there, non-TAB days and others. And so we recognise that value very strongly, and that's why me as the Racing Minister and Ray as the Parliamentary Secretary have those roles. Can I just say also, quickly, that outside of the Treasury portfolio, racing is the one that occupies most of my time.
Eagle Farm actually comes in to your electorate. Why haven't governments of either persuasion put money in to doing something about the antiquated facilities
Sure.
at Eagle Farm?
It's been a long time since our side of politics has had an opportunity to do that. I can say certainly it is, both Eagle Farm and Doomben are in my electorate. When I was first elected, there was a proposal, of course, to sell Doomben. And we were locally very much up in arms against that occurring and fought to retain Doomben as part of what I considered to be the appropriate outcome, which was the 1 club, 2 tracks outcome for that area and for Brisbane Metropolitan Racing. I said at the time that I thought that racing lacked a champion who had been around for some considerable period of time to actually go to government and say, in the same way that perhaps Rugby League got its funding for Suncorp Stadium, that you need to make the same, you need to have the same champion making that commitment and going into to get that funding. I can say the $110 million that was announced only 3 weeks or so ago doesn't include 1 cent for Eagle Farm and Doomben. I can say as the local member there that I am fully supporting what the Brisbane Racing Club and Kevin Dixon are doing in terms of trying to maximise the value out of their own asset and to give them every opportunity. And they tell me that they want to continue to proceed down that course, and they are confident in their ability to be able to fund their own operations, but I think racing does need a champion.
Thank you, Tim. I'll ask Murray to come back, and we will go to some of the questions which you see outlined there.